Hi guys, it's Jerningam here. This is my subscribers that are going up. 351. Some people have probably got more subscribers than me or less. But anyway, I did a video the other day. It says I wish they would put GTA 4 map into GTA 5 and North Yankton. It says I got 92 reviews on the reviews there. As I say, I'm going to click onto the video. And this is me on GTA 5 yesterday. What's going on here? The TV's gone off. I find it very annoying when things don't work properly. The TV just seems to switch off. Right, so is it going to come back on? Well, the TV's gone off. What's going on here? Can't see the TV. Right, I don't know what's going on with my TV. What? 2 seconds, it says I got no signal, guys. It's not obviously knocked out. I can't see the screen. What is going on here? Right, there we go. I don't know what happened there. The TV seemed to have went off. As I was saying, sorry about that, guys. You're probably thinking what the hell was going on there. As I was talking about my thing on YouTube, here we go. It says 28 reviews there. So I click back off the video and go back on to 92 reviews. I don't know if you guys find the same problem as this. Like I say, I've got loads of videos on YouTube, what you guys could be watching. Oh, really? Sore chest today. So I've done various videos about the news, about Theresa May, about got loads of videos, so you guys can watch them. If you guys don't know what my YouTube channel is, it's called Jerningam. You can put in Aaron Owen. I've got a really sore chest today, and I feel a bit under the weather, but apart from that, I'm good. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about this video, to be honest with you. I find it very annoying when things don't seem to work properly, and they don't seem to just generally work. I'm trying to think what to say for this video. If you guys have any problems about your videos glitching out or not showing you the proper reviews, I mean, does Twitch get these problems, or does anything else get the problems on it? I'm trying to say things out of brain. So I am thinking quite a lot today, and what I'm saying half on the phone, or saying in my brain, sometimes my words jumble up. I do apologise, but that's just the way it is. So you guys didn't understand a word of what I've just said. But what I'm saying to you is, if you have a problem with your YouTube channel, I'm not showing you the right reviews, I don't know if you should report it or talk to the people that actually know what's going on. I've had a great day today. I've been outside most of the day, walking around, enjoying the sunshine, blue sky outside. Then I thought I'd just do a little live stream at home on the phone, even though I live stream the PlayStation a lot. I'm just trying to. My brain is somewhere else. I do apologise. I mean, I've got a really sore chest, and I've never known anything of it. I just thought it'd be nice to do a little live. Well, it's not live as such. It's a pre-recorded video at home. My nose is really killing me, as you can hear my sniffles. Some days you don't feel like speaking, other days you do. Depends on the person. I'm just thinking of what game I could be streaming next, or going to be streaming. I'm sorry if I feel a bit lost sometimes, guys, when I'm talking, but that's just me. There's nothing much on the TV. I'm going to see what's on the news channel for a second and see if there's anything good on. So, This was like done a couple of hours ago with Tony Blair and, as we can see here, Tony Blair and Jeremy Corbyn. So this is
so what these results really tell you
Tony
is the
Blair's
country's
video.
profoundly divided. So what people look for is a compromise over Brexit. Unfortunately, that's not possible. You can get a compromise over the right process to reach a final decision, I think.
Most of you guys probably don't know who Tony Blair is.
But there is no Brexit compromise, because the one compromise
He's talking
that
about
would
Brexit.
make sense, which is a soft Brexit. In other words, Britain stays in the trading system of the European Union, even if it leaves the political system. That's a compromise that just doesn't work, because those people who voted for Nigel Farage and voted for Brexit want out of that trading system. That is integral to
their point, and I think you'd probably agree with this, is that we'd be leaving, but we'd still be subject to European Union laws, which they don't want.
Right, and because, of course, Brexit is based essentially on a myth, which is that we're not in control of our own laws, when we obviously are for the vast bulk of what this country needs to do for its future. The Brexiteers have been driven to focus on the single market and the customs union as the things that destroy our sovereignty, even though, by the way, it was a Conservative Party that first initiated these things. So you're in a situation, therefore, that the compromise people seek over Brexit, which is a soft Brexit, i.e. you stay in a relationship rather like
Stephen Kinnock.
Yeah, the problem is it comes from a very well-intentioned place. I completely get why people want to do it. But if you're a Labour Party politician, you're worried you're hemorrhaging votes to the Brexit Party because you've not been clear about Brexit, and you come out with a soft Brexit that the Brexiteers say is a betrayal, you're going to be no better off. In fact, you're going to be worse off, because you'll have alienated the people who want to remain from the Labour Party, but you won't have given those people in these traditional working class Labour seats who voted Brexit, you won't have given them a reason for coming back to Labour.
You see, that's the problem, because suppose Labour moves in the direction of openly backing another referendum. It loses Bolsover, it loses Mansfield, it loses all those constituencies, it loses Gloria de Pietro's constituencies.
Right, so that's the challenge. So what would I do if I was...
Yeah.
Right. It's to realise that there isn't a Brexit compromise, and you've got to do two things. There's one of two ways of resolving this. There's a sensible way, and then there's a not so sensible way.
Most of you guys don't know who this guy is. It's Tony Blair. He used to be running in country a long time ago.
To do what
he's not
so
anymore.
far has not happened in Parliament, which is you lay out the options for people: hard Brexit, soft Brexit, no deal Brexit. You explain those options. You force Parliament to come to a decision, and it's at that point that, in my view, Parliament will realise the sensible thing is to decide on a form of Brexit, but give the final say to the people. Because your hard Brexit is going to be extremely painful economically, and your soft Brexit will be pointless.
And what you're saying effectively is you think the choice is between effectively a no-deal Brexit and remaining. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yes, because otherwise, if the whole case of Brexit is get out of the single market and customs union, there's no point in doing a Brexit that the people who advocate Brexit say isn't a proper Brexit.
So do you think that's what Mr Corbyn should do now, say that the Labour Party wants a referendum on basically absolute leave or absolute remaining?
I think he should do that, but I think if he's sensible, he will advocate a path in Parliament first that educates both Parliament and the British people.
I want to get out of the EU. I don't want to stay in the EU.
Has been stalling over this is not because Parliament's a bunch of ne'er-do-wells.
I'm sure you guys want to get out of the EU as well, so most of you people.
Because there are different
some remainers, but I want to leave the EU.
Hugely different consequences.
About bloody time we did.
And you have to choose a form of Brexit. And therefore, one of the reasons why it's so important to go back to the people for a final say is after 3 years of this mess and a decision of this magnitude, it makes perfect sense to say, look, do you want to tell them again, or do you want to think again?
Is this preferable to having a general election?
Yes, a general election. Look, the Conservatives, what Jeremy Hunt's saying there is absolutely right. The Conservatives would be, I mean, look, this is modern politics.
I'm sure Jeremy Corbyn will love this. Customs union again.
Election in the shadow of Brexit. So
which annoys me.
The less sensible route to a solution, which is what I'm
Labour are rubbish, Conservative,
a new Tory leader.
and going downhill, but Nigel Farage.
It's going to be a competition in Brexit.
It's good.
Who can
Brexit
be more
Party.
Brexit than the other person? And I think all of those Tory leadership candidates, whoever emerges, will go back to Europe. They'll try and essentially, if you read what they're saying, they're still trying to pitch this idea that Europe is going to allow us access into the market without abiding by the rules. They will find Europe says no to that, and Europe will not make concessions to a hardline Tory leader that they were not prepared to give to Theresa May. you'll then have a situation where no deal is
Right.
on the table. But here is my prediction. There is no Tory leader that would be crazy enough to try and tip this country into no-deal Brexit without going back to the people.
So you don't believe them, what they're saying now in their leadership campaign? I mean,
I believe they're prepared to advocate.
Day or Boris Johnson.
Someone like Boris Johnson, perfectly prepared to advocate no deal. But you cannot possibly argue that the June 2016 referendum is a mandate for no deal. These guys said at the time, if you remember, that the deal was going to be easy. They said, the Germans will be queuing up to give us what we wanted. So I don't think any of them, because if you're a Tory leader and you really want to own no deal for the Tory party, I mean, one of the things that amazes me is how the Conservative Party, that when I was growing up used to be the sort of common sense party, if you like, has now become literally this sort of Farageist grouping. I mean, it's for the Tories to put themselves in the position of that narrow nationalistic viewpoint is an extraordinary thing for them to do.
But if we come down to this referendum which you're advocating, there is a chance, isn't there, that people out of patriotism, national pride, say, well, so be it. Let's get rid of the European Union.
There's a chance of that.
How likely do you think that is?
I don't think it's likely. I think if you mount a proper campaign, put the arguments in the proper way, you will bust apart the essence of the Brexit case, which is that we're not a sovereign country when we obviously are.
But you see, that's the problem there. You might have mounted a proper campaign, but we haven't had a proper campaign. Mrs May, Jeremy Corbyn, they didn't do interviews, they didn't debate each other, they didn't go on the public stage during this recent election campaign and, frankly, in previous elections. I mean, that's what the country lacks, isn't it? Is leadership.
Yeah, absolutely, it's what it lacks. And I think if there is a new campaign, you will find that it's a much more equal type of campaign, because the arguments of the Farages of this world are going to be answered properly.
Who is the person to take on Nigel Farage?
It's not. I don't think there's one person that takes him on, as it were. But I think that anybody who gets into this campaign with the right set of arguments is going to find, they can have the argument in the right way. Look, if you think of the challenges facing this country on the health service or taxes or public spending, living standards, inequality, climate, any of these challenges, Brexit is not the answer to any of them. The answers are to be found here in this country.
But you see, the problem is that Nigel Farage is probably the most persuasive communicator around, and unless he's taken head on, he might win the other way.
Well, he will have to be taken head on, but he will be.
And who will do it?
Well, I think a range of people will do it, but
give me some names, because I'm
not. I know it's not choosing the names now because I think it would be difficult and invidious. But look, in the end, if you have a fresh campaign, I think it will allow us, in the light of 3 years of experience, to go back into this argument. And by the way, when people say, well, isn't there a risk that then people will vote for hard Brexit or no deal Brexit? I'm afraid if that is honestly what the British people want, with all the information they now have after the last 3 years, we're going to have to make the best of it.
But then you can take the Kenneth Clarke argument, and he just says, look, the problem is referenda, that our relationship with Europe is a complicated technical matter, should be handled by the people, and we don't want to go back and ask the people again, look what happened last time, will be his argument.
Yeah, I get that 100%, but here's the problem, Ken. We had a referendum. Now, I think the one person who made a speech in the 2015 election saying, do not have a referendum on Europe, it's the wrong issue to try and resolve.
It, though. I mean, you promised referendums on the various European treaties.
I promised with some, I had to be persuaded somewhat, but yeah, of course. But I was for a referendum if we joined the single currency. I think if you're a government that proposes a change, a huge change in the status quo, I think there is a case for having a referendum. I think what there is not a case for doing is having a referendum on the status quo when you, the government, actually want to keep the status quo. That's an incredibly dangerous thing to do, because it lands you in the situation where we have been landed in, where you as a government are then forced to deliver something you profoundly don't believe in.
What do you think of Mrs May? What are your feelings for her?
So I feel very sorry for her on a personal level. And, I know how difficult the job is. So personally, I'm deeply sympathetic and I wish her nothing but good luck in the future. But obviously, I don't agree with her.
She rebuffed you. I mean, you offered to meet with her and talk to her, and she didn't want to do that. Is that right?
Well, we did actually have a conversation, and I honestly think she tried to do the best for the country. But in the end, the problem with this Brexit business is that it's a binary choice, and this is the difficulty. And as I say, I completely understand why people think, well, isn't there some way we can keep everyone united and on side with each other? I'm afraid it's such a destiny-changing decision that the answer to that is no. You can maybe unite people around a process for reaching the decision, which is why I think if you did this in the way I describe, a proper process which we've not had yet in Parliament, and then a decision by the people, you might get to greater unity. But you're not going to find a compromise on Brexit itself. And you know, as I have tried to explain to her and to others, in the end, the choices on Brexit, you know, one is a suit and one is a dress, and you can have bespoke versions of both, but they're different.
You know Boris Johnson, you come across him as a journalist and those things. Is he someone who is fit to be Prime Minister? I know you don't agree with his politics.
I wouldn't vote for Boris Johnson as Prime Minister. That's pretty obvious. You know, I'm not going to get into fit or not fit. That's a pretty heavy thing to say about someone.
Well, that's been raised by candidates like Boris Stewart.
Yeah, but you know, in the end, that's a Tory leadership campaign. They can have their leadership campaign. My worry is less about Boris Johnson than the position that he represents. And that position is a position where, and this is the fundamental problem with these Brexit people, they are uniting two groups of people to get Brexit who fundamentally disagree with each other. One group of people like some of my former constituents who actually worry about globalization, worry about things like immigration, and want a halt to the way the world is going. The other people like Boris Johnson are ultra-Thatcherites. And they put these two bits of this coalition together. And the real danger if we do Brexit is that you're going to get to the situation where if you tumble out of Europe, for example, with a hard Brexit or no deal Brexit, Boris Johnson's going to be wanting to go in the direction of deregulation, lower taxes, smaller state, and the foot soldiers that delivered Brexit are going to be going in precisely the opposite direction. It's one of the reasons why, you know, if you get to another referendum, it's going to be a very simple argument. Do you want to carry on arguing about Brexit for years to come, or do you want to switch out of this complete diversion from the real challenges of the country and get back to facing those challenges and dealing with them?
If the Tories make a mess of it, Brexit's unresolved, and we have a general election, do you think Jeremy Corbyn would win it?
I think it all depends whether it happens in the shadow of Brexit. If Brexit's an issue at the next election, the Tories are at risk. If it's not, then obviously they're in a stronger position.
But at risk from Jeremy
I don't want
Corbyn
Jeremy Corbyn to win the
now.
election.
Well,
I wouldn't want Jeremy Corbyn to win.
Topic, but look, it's no secret. I don't
Jeremy Corbyn's not in it for the people, isn't it, for himself?
Jeremy Corbyn. But I think if Brexit is unresolved and you have a general election, then the risk for the Tories is the risk they ran in 2017, and then more so.
And the risk for Labour?
The risk for Labour is if it doesn't put forward a set of policies that can command support in the centre as well as on the left, then it can't get to a majority.
And that is essentially on Europe. I mean, Mr. Corbyn's got to move on Europe.
Well, I think on Europe, he's just got to come to a clear position. I mean, the one thing that's very obvious is that both party leaderships have made the same mistake, which is to think that it's possible to sit on the fence on Europe and appeal to both sides. What the European elections show you is that isn't possible.
I mean, he celebrated his 70th birthday at the weekend. I don't know if you sent him a card or not.
Look, I tend, when people get to that stage, they probably don't want reminding. But
all right, well,
that's how I feel, and I'm younger.
Yeah, well, is he the man to lead the Labour Party still? I mean,
look, there's questions about the leadership, but those are for another day, in my view.
Why? I mean,
because I think the issue today frankly, is Brexit, and you know, all the concentration and all the energy has got to be to sorting out a Labour Party position that's sensible, that can command as much support as possible, that actually deals argument by argument with the concerns of those moderate Labour MPs in Brexit voting seats who worry that if we come to a much more pro-European position, their seats will be lost.
I mean, do you hold that much hope in Tom Watson? I mean, after he was the man who did you in as Prime Minister to a certain extent.
Yeah, but you know, politics moves on, and I never bear grudges in politics. I think Tom Watson showed a lot of leadership in the last year or so, and I support what he's trying to do within the Labour Party, which is to give a broad shelter to those MPs that believe that Labour wins when it wins from a centre-left position. And this is a.
I don't want Labour to win. It'd be nice if the Conservatives won,
Yes, of
or
course. I mean,
Nigel
I've gone through a lot
Farage,
of
Brexit Party, would
referendums.
win.
And
Labour
I've
are just
tried to
rubbish, in
end
my
this across the
opinion, but
political
everyone's
spectrum,
different.
actually. And
Some
one
of you
the
guys
things
may
that's
like
very,
Labour
very
and
obvious
Conservatives and
is that
Brexit
by
Party
apart
and
from the issue
UK
of Brexit,
Change and
there is a large centre ground in British politics
Greener
today that's
or
not represented.
Tories,
And
well,
if the Tory
Democrats.
party really do go to
You're
being
probably into a lot of things if you
a
like
sort of
politics.
Brexit party, in other words, they think the way to defeat Nigel Farage is to ape him. If they really do that, and the Labour Party stays in a far left position, then I've said, on many occasions, you've got a vast amount of territory in British politics that's just open and empty.
I mean, there is another analysis which is around today following the results of the European elections, which simply says the old red-blue politics are finished, that people now identify in different ways. They're more concerned about where they stand on Brexit than they are whether they support Labour or Conservatives, and many people concerned about the environment, all the rest of it. You've talked about open and closed. I mean, do you think the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have outlived their usefulness?
I don't. I think I put it in a different way. If they retreat to ideological extremes of left and right, I think they will make themselves irrelevant to the challenges of the future. But I think it's perfectly possible for either of those parties to recapture the basis upon which they won elections.
I mean, it's happened across Europe in these elections.
Yeah, it has. You're right. And if you look, it's because the lesson of these European elections is, yes, you have had a certain popular surge, but not actually as much as people think.
But you've had a move away from
and you've had a big move forward. I mean, actually, the big winners in Europe have been those liberals and Greens. So, yeah, no, I do think. I think what it shows you is people's traditional allegiance. When I was growing up, there were people who would vote Labour no matter what. And there were people who vote Tory no matter what. It wouldn't matter who you put out, what the position of the party was, they would simply vote for the party, for the tribe. I think that party allegiance has weakened in today's world. I think the sociology of politics has shifted. And therefore, I think if the two main parties go off to the extremes, or they become just the guardians of the status quo in circumstances where people want change, then you will get new political groupings formed. The point I'm making to you is that the Tory party or the Labour Party, it's open to them to go back to more sensible positions. It's just at the moment they don't show any signs of doing so.
Bearing that in mind, and they're meeting today, the present European leaders, who should be the next EU president?
Yeah, well, I've always taken the view that you should, for the president of the Commission, you should get the most competent person for the job. I don't think it matters. I think
Manfred Weber doesn't exactly inspire, does it?
Well, you can go through each of these candidates. The important thing is, I mean, all of these candidates are people those who will make the decision, and after all, it's the leaders of sovereign nations who will make those decisions. All of them have worked with all of these candidates. Actually, I think it's pretty good range of choice in those candidates. So they should choose the most capable person for the job. That's the sensible thing.
Barnier?
Well, he's one of the options. There's about 4 or 5 different candidates, and he's a perfectly competent person. For the Commission, you've got to have a competent executive. For the leadership of the Council, then that's someone, I think, who can also speak for Europe and give some sense
Do you
of
think
vision.
Merkel might be interested in one of those jobs?
Well, she has constantly said not, so I think you've got to assume that she isn't.
And just final question, we don't know the answer to this question, but how do you feel? Do you think the UK is ever going to leave the European Union or not?
I think, but you've got to aim off the position I hold. I think it is more likely now that we will have another referendum, and more likely that therefore we will vote to stay in the European Union. But I think we live in an era of unique unpredictability, and there are so many different variable factors before we reach that point. But I think the only way you're ever going to bring this country back together is through a reasonable process for deciding whether we really want to leave Europe or we want to stay. And then hopefully the emergence of a political coalition and a government that address the true challenges of the country, of which, by the way, as I constantly say, the forthcoming technological revolution is the single biggest challenge we face, and no political party in this country is yet even addressing it.
Interesting, as one would say to me. Very interesting indeed. Very interesting. Just the way it is, I suppose, with this world. They just can't seem to make their mind up about things, can they? This happened 4 days ago. Witnesses of the horror of Libyan.
The signs of battle are all around.
War in another country, eh?
And this in the middle of a residential area which both sides agreed they'd stay out of.
Lots of people don't like war, but some people cause war on purpose or because they don't know what to do in their own brain, or
very definitely isn't that.
some people just want to be in peace in their life and get on with life. But this is what war is.
Forces are lashing back.
There's a lot of action going on, a lot of still, and a tank on fire. So the rebels and the regime, and helped by the Russians and the Iranians, are really battling over territory for this final rebel stronghold. And the rebels aren't giving up without a huge
So
fight.
Russia's at war with the
But we've been
rebels.
spotted by the regime. Now we are the target.
They're only from fake.
We're clearly marked as media, and I'm wearing a Muslim dress. Run! With us are 2 civilian activists, and with a military drone overhead, we realise we're being tracked. This is what has driven tens of thousands of civilians to flee their homes.
Staying stationary isn't helping.
The Blitz appears designed to do just that, push people out, and they're now cornered in Idlib province with nowhere else to go.
Come do this way. There's somebody shooting at that vehicle on the road. They've got a line of sight. Come this way. I know. It's a 20.
That was a close one, that was.
Where are we going? Where's it going?
His fucking head blown off.
The military aircraft is still above us.
Right. Where?
One of the activists has been injured.
I'm hit.
As we scramble for cover, the regime isn't giving up. They're firing at us as we're trying to leave.
Come on, man. Put her in the car. Let's go.
Idlib civilians are enduring this every day in this latest assault.
Are you all right, Bilal? Where are you hit? Oh, he is hit.
He's been hit by shrapnel. Sky producer Martin Vowles bandages his wound. It doesn't appear too serious.
So just look at him, don't you? Huh?
This relentless shelling and the airstrikes are endangering millions of people now trapped in Idlib.
But civilians are very much in the firing line right now, aren't they?
Well, when you drop barrel bombs in the middle of a city, we don't get the impression that they're concerned about
Syrian,
civilians
yeah.
because there's no backlash. And as long as there's no backlash, it's okay.
This is the same town which we filmed from the overlooking hillside. The bombardment is comprehensive. The ceasefire deal brokered by Russia and Turkey to safeguard civilians.
Russia and Turkey are fighting against each other, and they want to give peace, apparently.
Barrel bombs from helicopters, and the US is warning against using chemical weapons. The rebels insist they've already been hit by them. The latest violence escalated after HTS emerged as the dominant rebel group. The regime insists they're terrorists, and HTS warns there'll be a massacre in Idlib unless Assad stopped.
They repelled this attack. Look, you can see the Russian aggression now. These are the Russians who support Bashar al-Assad in killing Muslims in Syria. They support him in killing civilians and attacking them.
Whole towns have emptied in this final rebel outpost, with civilians being corralled into an increasingly small corner of Idlib, and neither side showing any sign of stopping the fighting. Alex Crawford, Sky News, Idlib.
Well, the world we live in. This is Theresa May's speech a few days ago, 4 days ago, I think.
Here is the Prime Minister making a statement on her future.
4 days ago, this video. There's Theresa May stepping down.
Ever since I first stepped through the door behind me as Prime Minister, I have striven to make the United Kingdom a country that works not just for a privileged few, but for everyone, and to honour the result of the EU referendum. Back in 2016, we gave the British people a choice. Against all predictions, the British people voted to leave the European Union. I feel as certain today as I did 3 years ago that in a democracy, if you give people a choice, you have a duty to implement what they decide. I have done my best to do that. I negotiated the terms of our exit and a new relationship with our closest neighbours that protects jobs, our security, and our union. I have done everything I can to convince MPs to back that deal. Sadly, I have not been able to do so. I tried 3 times. I believe it was right to persevere, even when the odds against success seemed high. But it is now clear to me that it is in the best interests of the country for a new Prime Minister to lead that effort. So I am today announcing that I will resign as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party on Friday the 7th of June, so that a successor can be chosen. I've agreed with the party chairman and with the chairman of the 1922 committee that the process for electing a new leader should begin in the following week.
That says Downing Street Live, yeah.
I have kept Her Majesty the Queen fully
4 days ago
informed of
news.
my intentions, and I will continue to serve as her Prime Minister until the process has concluded. It is, and will always remain, a matter of deep regret to me that I have not been able to deliver Brexit. It will be for my successor to seek a way forward that honours the result of the referendum. To succeed, he or she will have to find consensus in Parliament where I have not. Such a consensus can only be reached if those on all sides of the debate are willing to compromise. For many years, the great humanitarian Sir Nicholas Winton, who saved the lives of hundreds of children by arranging their evacuation from Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia through the Kindertransport, was my constituent in Maidenhead. At another time of political controversy, a few years before his death, he took me to one side at a local event and gave me a piece of advice. He said, "Never forget that compromise is not a dirty word. Life depends on compromise." He was right. As we strive to find the compromises we need in our politics, whether to deliver Brexit or to restore devolved government in Northern Ireland, we must remember what brought us here. Because the referendum was not just a call to leave the EU, but for profound change in our country. A call to make the United Kingdom a country that truly works for everyone.
Yep.
Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson is the only British politician known universally by
This is
a
Boris
first name.
Johnson.
Boris Bikes, Boris the blonde bombshell, Boris the buffoon. Even the Prime Minister knows it. Boris is Boris. When it comes to Mr. Johnson, a surname is optional. But who is the man beneath the hair? Much like President Trump, Britain's Foreign Secretary has acquired a reputation as a maverick, yet his background places him firmly in the establishment. Son of a diplomat, later turned MEP, Boris was born in New York City. Fittingly, he possessed the multiculturalism embraced by the city with his father's Turkish roots. But it wasn't long before the child who wanted to be king of the world came home and was inducted into a series of elite British institutions. After attending the same primary school as Ed Miliband, he went to Eton and Christ Church College, Oxford. He was union president and part of the notorious Bullingdon Club, with many others seemingly born to rule.
Britain just leapt into the lifeboat, jumped out of the ERM, and let the rest manage as best they could. There was absolutely no attempt to give a kind of lead or unify the community during that time. And I think other countries, particularly the Dutch, felt very strongly about that.
His career as a journalist didn't begin well. He was fired from the Times for making up a quote. Fittingly, his career took off in earnest in Brussels. He was a young and carefree, his critics say careless, journalist for The Telegraph between 1989 and 1994. Nestled in the bosom of the Eurocrats, he filed stories that blazed a trail. He delighted his bosses and his readers, peddling facts and the odd fiction about Europe. Boris's Brussels was the land of straight bananas and prawn cocktail crisp bands. And over 20 years later, he would deploy the very same stories as a weapon of choice in the Brexit battle. But he wasn't content to continue as an onlooker. Politics beckoned. He contested Clwyd South in 1997, but even the blonde bombshell couldn't hold back Tony Blair's New Labour landslide. He lost. Undeterred, he continued to build his profile in newspapers and on British panel shows, perfecting his bumbling blonde persona.
So all the honest truth.
What's that?
They produced the jacket before I'd written the book. That's it.
I must have. If it's going to be used in a relic.
I must have forgotten what the title was.
By 1999, he took the editorship of The Spectator magazine, promising its owners he would abandon his political ambitions for the time being. In 2001, he was elected the MP for Henley. Socially, he was liberal, voting to repeal Section 28 and supporting the Gender Recognition Act in 2004.
And I have some perfectly respectable neighbours, good bourgeois types who, without giving the game away or naming them, you know, whenever they're sitting in every evening, got nothing else to do, they roll up a spliff and quietly smoke it together.
Until 2008, he held various shadow ministerial roles under the leadership of Michael Howard and David Cameron, but he was fired by Michael Howard after lying about an affair.
Do you think it's unfair that you've been removed from the front bench?
I think all is for the best and best of all possible worlds. And I wish you a great morning.
Thank you. An unmissable opportunity loomed. The London mayoralty. A theme was emerging. Boris rather likes to have his cake and eat it too. He managed to woo both traditional Tories and erstwhile Labour supporters of Red Ken Livingstone. Many weren't voting Conservative, they were voting for Boris. Some accused him of taking credit for projects started by his predecessor Ken Livingstone. And London's sponsored bicycle scheme was dubbed Boris Bikes, regardless of the sponsor on the side. He was adamantly pro-EU and even talked of Turkish succession to the Union. Amid the London riots, his response was seen by some as lacklustre and a low point of his time as mayor. It led to heavy criticism on the city's streets.
What about the... It is time...
His plans for Boris Island never got off the ground. Critics say he made London unaffordable and loosened planning laws.
In the way.
You said they didn't have the resources,
Well,
and that's years of local government cuts under your government. That's true though, isn't it?
No.
I know it said June 2017 in the video. This one's quite an old video, but most people haven't seen it.
He remained an immensely popular figure. And even getting stuck on a zip wire couldn't spoil his party. As his star rose, so too did new questions over his leadership ambitions. But to become leader, first Boris needed to become an MP once again, which would mean having his cake and eating it. In fact, he denied he would return to Parliament during his mayoral term 17 times in one interview. Months later, he was MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip, and still Mayor of London.
Okay.
When in 2015 David Cameron made the surprise announcement he wouldn't stand for a third term, the door to number 10 appeared to open just a crack.
Happen, it is more likely that, as I say, I will be reincarnated as an Owen, or knocked in a disused bridge, or decapitated by a flying frisbee.
But the fact is now, it's been started now, hasn't it?
But Boris needed to get his foot in. David Cameron had promised to hold a referendum on Britain's membership with the EU. It was to have far-reaching consequences, not least for Boris himself. He agonised over his position and had written drafts of both a Remain and Leave column for the Daily Telegraph. He'd enjoyed the odd cheeky sideswipe at the EU in the past.
Cardiff Council decided to interpret the Animal Byproducts Regulation 2002 in such a way as to forbid people
I've got
from
most of
recycling
them in
key bags. Now that is a classic example.
I just want to really talk about
the confluence of
everybody.
EU
Some people game, other people don't they?
with,
Computer games.
overzealous British implementation.
That's an action.
But he'd also extolled the benefits of mass immigration. Boris met with his friend, arch-Brexiteer Michael Gove, on the eve of the campaign. They joined forces to launch the Leave campaign.
And it's my view that after 30 years of writing about this, we have a chance actually to do something. I have a chance actually to do something. I would like to see a new relationship based more on trade, on cooperation, but as I say, with much less of this supranational element. So that's where I'm coming from.
It was bloody. The cabinet was split down the middle, and Boris was accused of running a campaign based on half-truths and outright lies. He flipped his position on Turkey joining the EU, warning it would give millions of migrants rights to work in the UK.
So this stat that you've got plastered on the side of the bus, the £350 million a week goes to the EU. The Institute for Fiscal Studies says that's a misleading figure. The UK Statistics Authority says that's a misleading figure. Isn't it the case that you're cherry-picking and even manipulating stats to suit you?
What it represents is the global sum that we send to Brussels.
But it doesn't take into account the rebate.
What is unquestionably true is that we write out a cheque for 300, effectively we send £20 million a year to Brussels, over which we have no control.
He was in his element, travelling the country in his big red bus, waving pasties, clutching British asparagus and kissing English caught fish at Billingsgate Fish Market.
It's probably going to be Leave, I think.
Is it Boris Johnson that swung it?
He had something to do with it, I think. Yeah. A lot of people in Cornwall know the realities of the EU in Cornwall and what we get from it, so I don't think it will change it all that much.
You were an undecided voter.
I was. Who knows
Have he
now?
persuaded you?
I think he just might have done it.
At 3:25 in the morning, Sheffield declared to leave. Durham, Birmingham, Northumberland followed. Boris was vindicated, but the country was bitterly divided. His fellow Etonian David Cameron's career was over. Within hours, he'd left Downing Street with his wife and children. The ball had come loose from the back of the scrum. It looked like a two-horse race between quiet Remainer and Home Secretary Theresa May and Boris Johnson, the brash face of the Leave campaign. But Boris had underestimated his campaign mate. In a shock announcement, Michael Gove said he would also run for PM. He didn't believe Boris was up to the job.
I have concluded that person cannot be me.
The job slipped from his grasp. Britain's new Prime Minister was not a blonde bombshell, but the first female PM since Margaret Thatcher. Boris appeared vanquished, but only briefly. When Mrs May announced her new cabinet appointments, there was only one that dominated the headlines. Bumbling Boris was to be Foreign Secretary, Britain's representative to the world. Michael Gove was left out in the cold, while Boris was sent around the world, some said as far away from Downing Street as number 10 could get him.
But you have an unusually long history of wild exaggerations and frankly outright lies that I think few foreign secretaries have prior to this job.
I appreciate the First Amendment in when you're right to free speech, but I think chapter and verse sorry.
This is what you would do if you were in my.
I'm sorry. Look, I mean, let me just repeat my point, which is this.
Theresa May, meanwhile, was gearing up for the biggest mistake of her premiership. She misread the country and underestimated her opponent, Jeremy Corbyn, by calling an election. Conservatives lost their majority, and Theresa May her authority.
With the door to number 10 opening a crack again, bumbling Boris has yet again tripped himself up on the doormat.
Look at what Nazanin's Ratcliffe was doing. Just, she was simply teaching people journalism, as I understand.
He had to clarify these comments as they were incorrect and could worsen the situation of an Iranian British woman currently held in Tehran.
The UK government has no doubt that she was on holiday in Iran when she was arrested last year, and that was the sole purpose of her visit.
Why won't you apologise properly to Nazanin's family, and are you now willing to meet them?
Well, as I've said repeatedly, and I said in the House of Commons yesterday, I'm very happy to meet the family, and I'm Mr. Ratcliffe. I'm in fact, I think I'll show you see him before I go to Iran in the course of the next few weeks.
Very interesting news. There's always something different every day you learn on the TV, even though you learn real life. Well, this was 4 days ago video of Syria. So that's the motorbike one. Lots of people don't like war, but it happens. I mean, people rather not see war, but the world we live in sometimes is just silly people that cause the war and don't understand one another. That's the thing, and it irritates a lot of people. Seeing what else is on the TV. Got an itchy face or something. You need a shave. So, anyway, guys, hope you all enjoyed this broadcast. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for joining me, and see you in the next one. Peace. And if I'm streaming, come and join me. There's a lot of things being talked on this video, what I've done, about Boris Johnson, about Tony Blair, about Jeremy Corbyn, Theresa May, all on this video, what we've watched so far and enjoyed. Talking about the referendum, Nigel Farage and everything. Thank you for joining me in this one. And I'll catch you in the other videos. See you later, guys. Peace.